They say the sound of a Gatling gun is music to a dying world. I guess that makes me a conductor. I sat on a crate of brass casings, oiling the old beast with hands that hadn't stopped shaking since I saw the dropships. The barrel array clicked softly as I turned it, each chamber a prayer whispered in metal. Outside, the wind howled across the ridge, kicking dust into the broken teeth of what used to be Colorado. These mountains used to mean something. Now they were just high ground for killing. Colonel, rasped Coop, sliding into the bunker doorway. His face was smeared with soot and something darker, either oil or blood, and neither was fresh. They're in low orbit. 30 ships. No response to hails. They wouldn't respond if we offered cake and a parade. I stood, rolling my shoulder. Age hadn't made me slower, just meaner. How's the generator? Stable. Barely. He hesitated. You sure this antique's gonna work? I gave the Gatling gun a fond pat, like a loyal hound. She's louder than their diplomacy. That's all we need. We weren't a military, not really. Just a patchwork of farmers, ex-cons, drop-out engineers, and a few ghosts in uniform. The Empire didn't care who we were. Earth was a dead file in their galactic archives, low value, low resistance. That's why they were finally coming. Not to conquer. To clean up. They called us a legacy infestation. Empire Command had sent us a message a week ago, thin and clinical: surrender is expected. Resistance will not be tolerated. Compliance ensures minimal restructuring. They thought we still played by rules. That was their first mistake. We'd watched their wars on other worlds. Efficient, bloodless, executed with the sterile precision of AI-driven command. They dropped stun fields, deployed drones, locked down cities in under a day. Not one bullet fired. Not one soldier killed. Victory by algorithm. Earth didn't work like that. We were chaos in a bottle. We didn't have drones, we had kids rigging explosives out of lawnmowers. We didn't have gravity mines, we had car batteries wired to bear traps. And in my case, we had one lovingly restored, fully functional, 6-barrel reminder that sometimes kinetic beats clever. We didn't want to win. We just wanted them to bleed. The others filtered in that night, crowding around maps and blueprints lit by battery lanterns. Haga, the sniper, pointed to a narrow canyon west of the ridge. We funnel them here, she said. We'll mask our heat. Let 'em think it's a ghost town. Gatling's range? Asked Mara, a former aerospace mechanic turned demolitions expert. 1,800 meters effective, I replied. Closer's better. Let them see it. They nodded. No cheers, no war cries. Just quiet resolve. The kind born of losing everything but the will to bite back. I thought of my daughter then. 12 years old when the Empire first darkened the skies. Gone before I could explain what the stars meant. I kept her locket in my pocket, not for hope, but for reminder. They took everything. This was the price. The next morning came hard and red, sun bleeding over the ridge like a warning. Empire drop ships entered atmosphere without ceremony. No banners. No theatrics. Just metal slicing sky. They landed 3 clicks out. Their formations moved with synchronized confidence, 9-foot soldiers in shining exosuits, eyes like glass, weapons like surgical tools. Clean. Too clean. I crouched behind the sandbag nest, the Gatling gun humming under my gloves as I warmed her coils. The bunker around me reeked of sweat, gun oil, and anticipation. Then they spoke. A broadcast echoed through our comms, translated in perfect, emotionless English. This territory is now under galactic order. Lay down all weaponry. You will be rehabilitated. I didn't answer. I flipped the safety, felt the barrels twitch like hungry serpents, and whispered, "Let's educate him." And that's when everything changed. They came in like gods, columns of light piercing the sky, followed by the grinding descent of drop ships that disfigured the canyon floor with their arrival. The air vibrated with energy fields and the low whine of atmospheric stabilizers. Trees wilted. Birds vanished. The earth itself seemed to flinch. From my perch above the ravine, I counted 50 troops in the first wave. Their armor was seamless, reflective, too perfect to exist in mud and blood. They moved in precise lines, unhurried, confident in the superiority that had carried them through 43 pacified planets. I watched through the scope, my finger twitching on the trigger out of habit. But I wasn't the one meant to shoot first. "They're right where we want them," came Hager's voice over comms, low and sure. "Should I paint the lead?" "Not yet," I said, eyes still locked on their commander, an Imperial Strategos with silver insignia embossed into his chest plate, striding like he was already writing the post-victory report. I turned to the Gatling gun. Mara crouched beside it, running one last systems check on our cobbled-together power rig. "Batteries hot. Cranks functional too. We're good." I nodded and looked toward Coop, who was waiting near the ridge's edge with the trigger for the hillside charges. He raised 2 fingers. "Ready." "On my mark," I said, and exhaled. The Imperials fanned out, forming a spearhead formation. A dozen drones lifted into the air, scanning ahead, painting thermal images on their HUDs. They didn't see the traps. Not yet. Then the Strategos raised his palm. The entire line halted. He scanned the rocks above us, narrowed his eyes as if suspicious. A whisper of doubt. I leaned into the Gatling scope, lined up his chest. "Mark." The ridge exploded. Rocks and shrapnel rained down with fury, crushing the rearguard and sending their lines scattering. Smoke filled the canyon, thick and churning, laced with magnesium flares. Chaos erupted, just as we planned. "Now," I said, and pulled the trigger. The Gatling gun screamed. A cascade of bullets poured out in a molten blur, shredding the air and carving through armor like it was tin. The recoil rattled my bones, the barrels spun hot and wild, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Not while they were still moving. The first wave fell fast. Kinetic rounds tore through their shielding systems, overwhelming them through sheer volume. Plasma weapons were elegant. Ours were relentless. They fired back, of course. Blue bolts seared the sandbags, cutting into concrete like butter. But their targeting was optimized for predictable threats, standing armies, grid systems, patterns. We were none of those. From the trenches below, Molotovs arced into the smoke. Homemade IEDs triggered under their second row. One of the troopers turned and caught a bear trap to the ankle. He didn't even scream, just collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. "They are breaking!" Mara shouted, ducking as a bolt scorched the air above her. "They are confused," I corrected, sweeping the gun across the ridgeline where 2 more drones whirred into view. I adjusted and mowed them down midair. Confused breaks into fear. Fear breaks into retreat. The Strategos tried to rally, shouting orders in clipped Imperial code. His voice was drowned by the echo of old Earth thunder, my gun, still roaring, still hungry. Then I saw him gesture towards something off-grid. Reinforcements. A second ship, smaller, sleeker, descended behind the ridge. A walker stepped out, four-legged, bristling with plasma arrays and shield generators. It locked onto my position. I didn't blink. "Hager!" I barked. "New contact, rear ridge, plasma walker." "Got it," she answered instantly. A second later, a distant crack cut the air. The walker jolted as a .50 cal round ripped through its side module. It staggered, half its shielding offline, and then Mara hit the ignition on the backup charge we'd buried beneath its predicted path. It exploded from beneath. Steel shrieked as the walker folded in on itself. Screams followed, Imperial, panicked, unsure whether to shoot or run. Then silence. No one moved. No one breathed. The battlefield, once teeming with precision and arrogance, lay broken. The Strategos slumped to one knee, shielding fried, helmet cracked. His eyes, human, strangely, met mine across the canyon. I didn't feel triumph. I felt warning. They'd be back. I let the barrels slow, the Gatling whining down with a sound almost mournful. "They underestimated us," Coop said over the comms, voice shaking. "No," I replied, standing slowly. "They miscalculated us. That's worse. We gathered what we could, intact weapons, salvageable armor, intel from their uplink cores. Their tech was clean, too clean. It didn't know how to crawl in the mud, how to bleed and keep going. But it could learn. And next time, it would come smarter. We had to be ready. Because this was just the first chapter. And our gun had more to say. They returned 3 days later, just before dawn, with no speeches this time. No demands. No declarations of order or surrender. The sky cracked open again, but this time, the ships came in tighter formations, faster, quieter. No lights. No arrogance. We watched from the ridge in silence. Same canyon, same battlefield, but something fundamental had shifted. The Empire had learned. They brought hunters this time. Small, fast units, biosynthetic hybrids that moved like wolves and smelled like ozone. No more shiny exosuits. These things didn't stand in lines. They slithered through brush, adapted to terrain, learned our tactics in real time. They were here to end the embarrassment. I counted 24 before I lost track. Camouflage tech, thermal shielding. We couldn't see them half the time, but we could feel them. Like a cold pressure behind the eyes, like watching shadows breathe. Plan. Coop whispered beside me, fingers wrapped around the trigger of his jury-rigged EMP launcher. I glanced at the Gatling gun, covered with a tarp, quiet for now. Plan is to remind them who they are dealing with. We moved carefully. No big speeches, no sudden movements. The militia was smaller now, some wounded, some dead. Every face left was carved in stone. No one expected to survive. That wasn't the point anymore. The point was to be remembered. The hybrids struck first. One of our lookouts, Dev, vanished in a blink. No sound. Just gone. Seconds later, a scream echoed from the tree line. Mara cursed under her breath and dropped to her knees, arming proximity charges around the nest. They are flanking us, she hissed. Let them, I said. They are expecting symmetry. We'll give them fire. We fell back, drawing them into the inner circle of the canyon, closer, tighter. The hybrids pursued with mechanical patience, their movements predatory and precise. Then I pulled the torp from the Gatling. The gun was different now. We'd reinforced it, fed it from 2 batteries, wired in a second coolant pipe scavenged from an old mining drill. It looked like a beast from another age, ugly, overbuilt, real. As the first hybrid came into view, I opened fire. The recoil nearly tore my arm off, but the sound, God, the sound, ripped the morning apart. The rounds weren't just bullets now, they were tungsten core, armor-piercing death. I swept left to right, painting the canyon in brass and blood. The hybrids shrieked, not in pain, but confusion. This wasn't war the way they understood it. They didn't understand fury. Hager's rifle cracked behind me, picking off those I couldn't reach. Coop fired the EMP, and 2 cloaked enemies blinked into visibility just in time to be shredded. Mara screamed something, probably a warning, but the Gatling was too loud to hear anything now. One of the hybrids made it close. It leapt toward me, jaws open wide, limbs spinning like knives. I swung the gun hard, catching it midair, and the thing shattered against the bunker wall like glass under a hammer. We fought for 7 minutes. 7 minutes that stretched 100 years long. When the last one dropped, twitching in the dirt, I turned slowly, my arms numb, shoulders burning. Smoke choked the canyon. The sunrise finally broke through the haze, painting everything gold, absurdly peaceful. Then I saw him. An Imperial commander, different from the strategos before. He was smaller, older, unarmed. He stepped forward alone, helmet off, hands raised in the old symbol of parley. I kept the Gatling warm. He didn't flinch. We misjudged your species. No, I said. You misunderstood it. He glanced at the battlefield, the mangled tech, the silent hybrids, the sheer carnage. This display. It defies logic. We don't do logic when we're cornered. We do survival. Ugly, brutal, and loud. He looked at me for a long moment, eyes calculating. Permission to withdraw. Uncontested. Immediate extraction. Granted, I said. But leave your dead. He nodded once. This will be noted. As he turned, I called out, "Make sure it's remembered, not just noted." He paused, then continued walking without another word. Later, we burned the bodies. Not out of hatred, but principle. No trophies. No celebrations. Just fire and ash, and the long silence of aftermath. I sat alone by the gun that night, wiping it clean, the locket in my hand. I didn't open it. I never did. Coop brought me a can of beans and a bottle of something strong. He sat beside me without speaking. "You think that's it?" he asked finally. I stared into the fire. "No. But they won't forget us next time. They won't come in clean." "No," I agreed. "They'll come dirty. Like us." He took a long swig and passed it over. I drank without tasting. Behind us, the wind carried the scent of cordite and something like respect. We hadn't won, but we'd taught them fear. And sometimes, in a war like this, that's enough. The Empire didn't wait long. Within a week, their answer arrived, not in fleets, not in troops, but in silence. Our satellites picked up nothing. No movement in orbit. No communication on any channel. Just a dead calm. The kind that felt like the breath before a scream. We reinforced everything, doubled the trenches, camouflaged the ridge, rewired old mining tunnels as escape routes. But no one was fooled. The lull wasn't mercy. It was strategy. "They are studying us," Haga said, perched on the roof of the forward post. Her rifle sat across her lap like a sleeping dog. "Learning how we think." "They are wasting time," Mara replied, dragging a box of charges into the shadows. "We don't think. We just punch." I sat in the bunker, staring at the dismantled Gatling. Every screw and bolt laid out like bones. I wasn't fixing it. I was upgrading it. Again. The enemy had adapted. So would we. Each new piece was a lesson. The recoil dampener taken from the Walker's wreckage. The magnetic stabilization coil stolen from the hybrid's chest core. Everything they threw at us, we threw back harder. That was the deal now. They escalated. We answered in fire. On the 10th day, the sky rippled. Not ships, no. It was a distortion wave, like light bending wrong. Then came the sound. Not thunder, not engines. A deep, resonating hum that made your bones feel hollow. Our electronics blinked, then died. Radios hissed and fell silent. EMP? No. Worse. Above the canyon, something shimmered into existence. A floating platform, massive, alien, elegant in a way that made you uncomfortable to look at. No visible weapons. No troops. Just one thing. A voice. Not through speakers. Not through air. It spoke inside our heads. "This is your final learning cycle. Resistance will be interpreted as cultural hostility. Compliance leads to assimilation. Your persistence is inefficient." Coop dropped to his knees, clutching his skull. Mara stumbled back, eyes wide, nose bleeding. Even I felt it, pressure behind the eyes, like someone pressing fingers into my thoughts. I gritted my teeth and whispered through it. "Get off my planet." The pressure lifted. The hum faded. The platform remained, unmoving, unmoved. We regrouped. Mara stuffed cotton in her ears like that would help. Coop smeared grease on his temples, swearing it was psychological shielding. Haga just kept loading bullets like she was daring the sky to test her patience. "They don't want us dead," I said finally. "They want us erased. Folded into their order. No resistance. No history." "Why not just kill us?" Coop asked. "Because a corpse doesn't obey," Hagar answered. "So we adapted one more time. The final plan wasn't about winning. It was about making defiance unforgettable. We placed the Gatling on the ridge. In the open. Obvious. Bait. Then we wired the entire canyon with everything we had left: hydraulic mines, chemical flares, fusion cores tied to deadman switches. We buried signal repeaters in the wrecks of our old enemies and programmed them to scream one message on loop: we resist. The platform lowered that evening. Not fast. Not afraid. It hovered 30 feet above the canyon floor, casting no shadow, just presence. I manned the gun. Haga set her scope on the undercarriage. Mara held the DET trigger. Coop, pale but steady, watched our six. The voice came again, gentler now. You do not comprehend the mercy being offered. I comprehend gravity, I muttered. And then I fired. The Gatling sang its war hymn, its barrels glowing red, its rounds shrieking upward like a storm unleashed. The first volley struck the platform, and ricocheted. Shields. But we expected that. Haga's shot hit the sensor array on the left. A chink opened. I redirected the fire. The rounds found purchase, burrowing into its side. The platform began to shimmer, panic algorithms activating. Mara hit the detonator. The entire ridge exploded. Every trap, every charge, every stolen tech core we'd ever hoarded lit up at once. The explosion wasn't fire. It was color, blues, greens, ultraviolet flashes that turned night to science fiction. The platform wavered, cracked, then fell. Not fast. Not violently. Just collapsed. It landed in the dust with a sound like glass sighing. Not destroyed, but broken. I stood above it as the others limped down the ridge. The hull was still warm. The voice was gone. But I left the gun pointed at its heart. Coop sat beside me, coughing blood. They're gonna send more. Let them, I said. Haga dropped her last clip beside me. Think they'll ever understand? No, I said. But maybe someone else will. Mara set down her detonator. So what now? I looked out over the smoking canyon, the wreckage of our desperation and defiance. Now, I said, we wait for the next empire. And we'll be ready.